So you may be wondering the reason I stopped. It's actually not because of the sweat tent. The biggest reason why I don't think it's for me. So you guys want to see my sweat tent and my review. I've had this now for almost a year. And you may be wondering why it's in this condition. I clearly have not used it in like a month. And I'll tell you how we got here. But first, let's try to fix this thing and see what it looks like inside. The sweat tent, clearly not for someone like me. Ooh. But I actually think it is certainly for someone. Ooh. It looks nice, doesn't it? When it's mostly assembled. Take these windows off, get a little bit more light. All right. There it is. Here's the bench. Here's the wood, the lighter, fire starters, stove, water for steam, rocks that are normally on top. This thing, tarp got ripped. The actual stove itself is very, very heavy. And of course, there is the thermostat. There we go. That is it, fully expanded. That's what it looks like on the inside. So to understand how my sweat tent got into such a state of disarray, we first need to go over what the sweat tent is and its pros and cons and why it did not work for me. But it very well might actually work quite well for you. So the sweat tent is this portable, collapsible, very affordable sauna. And as someone who's interested in longevity and understands the benefits of proper sauna protocols, I figured, hey, I want to incorporate this into my life. I want a sauna in my backyard. Doing something indoors with infrared, based on my understanding of the literature, doesn't provide the same level of benefit as doing a sauna where it uses coals or firewood to get hotter than infrared otherwise could. So the assembly process wasn't too bad. I put a tarp down first because I didn't want to be on dirt when I was in my sauna, but you can if you don't mind that. You can put it on wood or really any surface. There's no ground, which is why I have this tarp layer underneath it to serve as a ground, because I just preferred standing on that because I'm barefoot when I'm in there, rather than being straight on my dirt. And I actually use stakes to drive the tarp into the ground, hold that in place. Then I assembled the sweat tent on top, and it wasn't that challenging. I mean, the first time you do it, it'll take a little bit longer than the second or third time you do it, but we're talking, 10, 15 minutes. And it comes together very nicely. It has enough space for 2 to 3 people comfortably. And the really important thing is actually getting your stove ready. I forget what they call it. It's like priming or curing or something like that. You want to burn it hot to gas off whatever chemicals there are in that stove so that when you're in the sauna with it, you're not inhaling anything that's going to give you headaches and such, or could otherwise be suboptimal for your health. You just have to do this once before you use the stove in the tent, because there are just chemicals and whatever that you want to burn off first. And then after this, we won't have to season it again. We'll just be able to throw logs in there and warm up our sweat tent. And after that, you're ready to go. Now, I do live in a windier area, so I use stakes to keep the sauna in place. And I even tied string from the top to bottom, which they include, so that the cover wasn't gonna fly away, because especially in Vegas with the sun beating on it, I wanted to provide whatever protection it needed so that we weren't gonna have any issues with things failing or becoming brittle or discolored or whatever. Important to actually put these window coverings on when you're not using it, otherwise the heat, and rather the sun, the UV rays, beats down on this plastic. It gets hard and brittle, starts cracking. So we got these little windows. So assembly wasn't bad at all. But I want to point out a personality quirk that I have, which is that I'm all about simplifying and adding convenience to my life. Okay, so when I set it up, I knew that I was just gonna keep it there. And a lot of people are gonna find way more benefit from the mobile collapsible component of this, since not only is it affordable, but you can also move it around. If you wanna have it at home in your backyard one day, then you wanna go camping or you wanna take it to another location, it can do that. But I'm the kind of person, I wouldn't call it laziness, because I don't consider myself a lazy person, but it's more that I want to fill my day with other things such that I don't even want to spend 10 minutes moving my sauna around location to location. That's just me though. And that's a quirk that I have that you might be totally okay with. Now, actually using the sauna, there was a bit of a learning curve. I'm new to this stuff, all right? So again, to many people, if you're a total newbie, you might have an experience similar to mine, which isn't bad, not terrible, wasn't a huge learning curve. But if you are experienced, you're gonna roll your eyes at me because of how incompetent and ignorant I was. Can we get 2 in there?
Yeah.
All right, we're just gonna do 1. So I wasn't using enough fire starters, or I wasn't placing them in the right position. So oftentimes I'd come out here, I would get fire in the stove, and you can use 2 or 3 pieces of wood, depending on the temperature that you want, how much heat you want. And it takes about maybe 15, 20 minutes to get up to temp. And I would come back out 15 to 20 minutes later and the fire was extinguished. I later learned about optimal positioning. You wanna have the fire starters underneath the wood in a position such that the wood is right on top and not smothering it. There's a few little, it's not very challenging again, but there was a bit of a learning curve for me. So once I was able to get it dialed in, I learned that using more fire starters and the positioning of them, and also keeping the door slightly open so that there was more ventilation for the heat to, more oxygen for it to get started and build in heat, that was optimal. So for the first 5, 6, maybe 10 sessions, there was a bit of a learning curve, but after that, easy to start it, and it does behave predictably. Again, you can modulate the heat based on the amount of wood you use. The door also has this sliding mechanism where you can adjust the ventilation to also fine tune it if the door is fully closed. And then on top of that, there's also vents in the actual tent if you want to cool it down a little bit. So you have windows and such where you can control the ventilation. You always want to keep this one open, but the other ones are adjustable to help you modulate the temperature. Now, I am not one of those people that likes to go 220 degrees Fahrenheit. I am more 180 to 200 is my sweet spot. So I was generally using 3 logs, and that was optimal. They do include a thermostat as well in the box, which is already pre-calibrated, and you can hang it on the side. It's very windy where I live because my house doesn't have, Vegas is already very windy, but then my house also doesn't have any structures around it to block the wind from the direction it's coming from, since I live at the end of my street in my neighborhood. And therefore, it was getting so windy that there were times that I was worried that the thing was gonna fly away, but luckily the stakes and everything held it in place. And even in their manual, they do say, do not place it in windy conditions because it's not designed for that. It's gonna collapse and things can get damaged. In fact, the roof piece, the cover on the top where the chimney comes out, that tore because of the wind. And I reached out to the Sweat Tent team, super cool guys, amazing to work with. And they were understanding, hey, yeah, no worries. And they sent me a new one. It's actually a newer, improved version that seemed to have more reinforcement there too, like a metal ring and such, which I thought was a nice touch. So it has happened again since. Now, when I was regularly using the sauna, I actually found it a very enjoyable experience. I was using it generally after dinner at nighttime because, again, if you go into a sauna or do something that heats up your body's then activating compensatory mechanisms to cool it, right? Because your body wants to maintain homeostasis. So if you go into a hot environment, the body says, let's cool, let's cool, let's cool. So you're gonna start, your veins are gonna start popping, you're gonna get vasodilation, you're gonna start sweating, such that when you get out of the sauna, those mechanisms are still active. And since you're now in a cooler, regular temperature environment, and it takes time for those mechanisms to reverse, you're now gonna cool, and that helps you fall asleep. So I like doing sauna at night, and being in the sweat tent, it was great. I was often there with my partner. We'd be sitting on the bench and I'm maybe reading a book because I don't want to bring electronics in any sauna. It's not optimal to be bringing electronics into hot environments and anything metal, in fact. So I'd read a book or just chat. If you do want to make it hotter, on top of the stove, they give you this metal box with included rocks. They even give you the rocks, which is awesome, nice touch. And you can pour water on top, and you're not making it a steam room, but adding the water on top and getting that steam does also increase the temperature. And you'll see that with the included thermostat that you can, you want to put it right around the height that you're at. If you put it higher up, and it's going to inflate the temperature because of course heat rises. It was enjoyable. You feel good and relaxed coming out. And then I was oftentimes using it actually throughout the summer. And normally I don't want to be outside during the summer, but because of that compensatory cooling mechanism, I actually felt good in the 95, 100 degree weather in Vegas in the evenings. And I would just sit outside and read a book or work on my laptop. It was actually very enjoyable. I enjoy that time quite a bit. So you may be wondering the reason I stopped. It's actually not because of the sweat tent. I've had my own personal stuff. I've been getting sick a ton and food poisoning as well on top of that. Obviously when you're sick, you don't want to stress your body more by going into this very hot environment. So with the travel, with the sickness, haven't been using it for the last couple months. And that's why it's in this state of disarray. And the biggest reason why I don't think it's for me, but it might very well be for you, is that I live in this area, and not only is Vegas windy, but like I said, there's no building near the tent that's gonna shield the wind, such that it just keeps getting toppled. And then if I do wanna go out and use the sauna, I have to reassemble it, go inside, things are kind of thrown around everywhere because of the wind as well. Sometimes things are getting damaged, and it's just a whole process that I then have to deal with. So things I love about the sweat tent, number one is the price. I wanted to try a sauna at my house because you go to 24 Hour Fitness or EOS or whatever, you can use the sauna there, but like, it's kind of smelly and there's not always the best etiquette and it's not pleasant. I don't enjoy those saunas. When I go to a hotel and they have a sauna, it's almost always empty. Those ones I do enjoy. So I figured, hey, let me just get a sauna at my house. And I love the price point because with that lower price, you can test whether you actually like a sauna without a lot of smelly people that are playing music on their phones and not being very polite and considerate. You can see if you enjoy the experience. $1,600 is a very reasonable price for a sauna, and you can get $100 off by using Kevin100 or clicking on the link below in the description. And another thing I surprisingly enjoyed was dealing with the fire. Once I got over my embarrassing learning curve, I enjoyed the fire because in modern times when we feel so disconnected and isolated from the natural elements, you're still isolated from the natural elements inside a tent in the sauna. But you know what I mean? It feels like a step in that direction where I'm dealing with a fire. I am stoking the fire, I am using the poker, and it's a little bit less clinical and cold compared to just pressing a switch. The next thing I like that I didn't value as much, but I think other people will value more, is the portability, where again, you can move it from place to place. Take the stove, they even give you a carrying bag, which is very practical. They even include a replacement tent rod in case yours breaks, and even with my wind, none of the tent rods on mine have broken. But they've really thought all these things through in the kit and the design and what you get for that $1,600 or $1,500 with the coupon. And while you may appreciate moving the tent from place to place, if you wanna use a sauna in various locations, what I appreciated is that having it be this portable thing makes it so much easier to just try a sauna. Do I want a sauna in my backyard? And I know despite my amazing landscaping in the backyard, I'm actually planning on changing my backyard and I'm figuring out, do I want a permanent fixed sauna there or not? Am I gonna actually use it or not? So sure, I could have bought an actual wooden barrel sauna or whatever, put it in the backyard, but if I change my mind, that's a whole separate process. If I wanna move it, or if I decide I don't want this and I wanna get rid of it, completely different process and way more headache than just dealing with the sweat tent. And the final thing worth mentioning is how knowledgeable, insightful, and helpful the team at Sweat Tent is. If you have any issues, you're gonna be in good hands. They're gonna teach you how to not only get the best out of the product, very personal, it's an actual person, not just like sending you to some FAQ page, right? It's helpful, it is personal, it is insightful, but they're also gonna very much take care of you. If you do have issues, broken pieces, or just issues, and I was having issues with the wood, so I told them, hey, can you help me figure out what kind of wood do I need to buy? They guided me to the right place. And they're also either coming out with or already launched a wood subscription service, so rather than going to Lowe's or Home Depot and picking up firewood, you can just get it delivered straight to your house at a regular frequency. All right, so things I don't like about the Sweat Tent. The first and biggest one is the wind. The way it's unable to resist wind because for something to be so portable and easy to assemble, of course, there's trade-offs, and one of those trade-offs is that it's not gonna withstand gusty winds, and it does get extremely windy here. And I should also mention though, it gets extremely gusty in Vegas, so much so that I have this deck outside, and some of the furniture on the deck with the wind flipped up onto my roof and damaged my roof. And I actually get it repaired. So that's how gusty and windy it gets out here. So now I have like sandbags holding all that stuff down. So again, where you're living might not be an issue at all. The second thing is the learning curve, but the learning curve is not super steep. Once you get past 5 or 10 sessions, it's gonna feel pretty easy and predictable. The third thing I don't like is that it's slow. I mean, all saunas are gonna be slow to heat up, even the ones that don't use firewood. You're not gonna go from room temperature to 190 degrees in 2 minutes. So I've used a lot of infrared saunas, and even those take a while, even to get up to 140, 145. But if you don't want any learning curve and you want complete convenience and ease of use above anything else, then yeah, having something that is controlled by an electrical unit where you can just set your temperature, etc., and it tells you how long it takes, that is gonna be more streamlined. Although again, it is a relatively shallow learning curve to get this to behave in the way that you expect it to and want it to. As for me, I'll be taking my sweat tent and moving it most likely to my girlfriend's or maybe my mom's, 2 places where they don't have the wind issue. And in my backyard, I'll be putting a permanent wooden sauna, like probably a barrel sauna or one of the options that you see at Costco. I first got interested in the saunas because of the health benefits, but thanks to the sweat tent, I've realized I like saunas and I want one in my backyard. I feel better during the process. I feel really good, especially after the process. And when I was in that rhythm, when I was in that routine during the summer, I looked forward to it every day. And the time immediately after was especially pleasant. So what I'm planning on doing is getting possibly a barrel sauna or going to Costco and getting one of those wooden saunas. They're gonna be like 3 times the price of the sweat tent, but then I won't have to worry about the wind at all, and it will be able to fit nicely in my backyard landscaping redesign. Again, if you're considering a sweat tent, use Kevin100 for $100 off your sweat tent. Link below. Much love, and see you in that next one.